Okay, guys, welcome to the Academy Podcast. Now, we started doing the Academy Podcast originally probably 7 years ago, and we did it on and off for a couple of years, and we mean to bring it back for a little while. And this lockdown situation has presented a perfect opportunity to do it because with most of us got a little bit more spare time. It's something that can be done online just as easily as it can be done face-to-face. So here it is. It's going to be the Sunday night social, 7 p.m. every Sunday, at least for the duration of lockdown. We'll see what happens after that. And in it, we're going to interview a real-life Academy member. We're going to talk about their journey, where they were at before they found us and started with us, how they found that whole experience of becoming a member, the results they've had since, the highs, the lows, the challenges, the frustrations. Because we fully understand and appreciate that hearing the story of what most people would consider a real person, a normal person, a member, and how they've overcome and work past the challenges and difficulties they faced is way more powerful than us essentially saying exactly the same thing. So tonight's first of the new podcasts is with Academy member of approaching 3 years in a couple of weeks, Lee Shaw. Good evening, Lee.
Good evening.
How you doing? You
Thanks
well?
for having me. I'm good. Yourself?
Yeah, good stuff. Cool. So as I mentioned, Lee, you joined in May, didn't you, 3 years ago?
I thought it was April.
Was it April? My apologies. So just over 3 years then. So tell us a little bit about the Lee prior to April 2017. So a bit about your backstory, things you'd perhaps tried in the past, your history of attempts at losing weight, getting fit, etc.
Well, it's pretty much. So where are we now? So I've just turned 40, so I was probably 37 when I joined the Academy. So good 20 years, I'd say I was overweight. Started when I was sort of 16, 17, and I'd say in probably the 3 or 4 years prior to joining the Academy is when I'd say it got to a dangerous level of obesity. I suppose I didn't really start thinking about it until early to mid-20s, it being an issue. And then we started, basically went down the route I'm assuming many people did in terms of trying different diets, Slimming World, Weight Watchers, doing various mainstream gyms, JJB, TV Club, and what have you. With varying but limited success. It worked for a while. I'd see some results, a bit of complacency had set in, boredom had set in, and then before I knew it, I'd be pretty much back to where I was before, and probably in a worse position than I was before. I tended to lose a bit and then put back on more than I originally did to start with. So it kind of just went on like that for well more than half of my life, essentially. So, yeah, it wasn't a good place.
Did you find there was any consistency in? You said some things worked, some didn't. What was it generally that it did work for you when you were doing it?
I suppose when I was dieting combined with going to a gym was generally when I had the best success. I found that if I could get into the gym early in the morning, I was more inclined to eat well that day. So that's generally, you're talking that I'd maybe last 3 or 4 months at best. And then, you visit the gym, start getting fewer and fewer, the bad eating starts creeping back in. And then before you know it, you just
generally, when you made those changes to your eating, were there similar sort of changes you made each time, or was there a variety of approaches in the eating?
Variety, really. It was generally dependent on what diet we were doing. It was always some kind of fad diet. Slimming World quite a while, actually. And that started off well. But obviously now, knowing what I know why it started well. You're suddenly going into a calorie deficit, and you're thinking, oh wow, these red days and these green days, it's the magic. And then when we did the Atkins diet, remember that one? That was a big one, 10, 50 years ago maybe.
Yeah.
You can eat as much fat as you want. You can have a full English breakfast every morning. I think after day 8, I was getting a bit sick and tired of a full English breakfast. And again, you start craving your breads and your pastas and your potatoes. And you start realising, I think that's the point where you start realising these are literally fads.
Yeah.
The short-term success. And looking back now, the time when it did work, for the time it worked, I understand now why it worked and probably what I could have done to continue it.
Of course, now from an exercise perspective, when you joined the gyms each time, did you generally try the same kind of thing, or again, was there differences in that?
No, that was always the same kind of thing. that was you join the gym, you go in, you do your induction, you tell the coach that what it is you're after. They put you a program together, and then they leave you to it.
Was there any difference in the different programs you received in the different gyms over the years?
No.
Was it a warm up on a recumbent bike, and then 10 minutes each on a cross trainer, treadmill and rower, and then 3 sets of 8 on 5 different resistance machines?
That's pretty much it, yeah.
Finish off with the mats at the end for a bit of ab work and a stretch.
There you go, yeah.
Same program every fitness instructor since, not every, but the majority of fitness instructors since the beginning of time have been given people, and yeah, it's not all right for a couple of workouts, isn't it? But soon gets a bit boring.
Yeah, exactly. I was sweating at the end, and like I say, when I first started going, and you're getting into it, it was all right, and I can see why for some people it would be okay, and probably still is to this day. I know people, you know, who go to gyms, they stick at gyms, and that's fine. But yeah, as you say, it starts getting a bit boring, and you kind of lose interest in you as well as a customer. I think we've got you in there. You're there for 12 months minimum.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Were you generally training by yourself or with other people?
I was always training by myself, yeah.
At 6 a.m. normally, yeah?
Yeah, say the headphones, listen to music, and yeah, hammer it. And when I did train, I trained well.
Yeah.
So it was, I never shied away from it when I was there. I think I've always had that when I have thrown myself in something, I've done it well, just not for long enough.
Well, the good news is that you're actually in the majority with what you did there, because the majority of people, when they lose weight, regain the same amount of weight and 8% more on average. So 8% is the average, supposedly. I've read that numerous times over the years. I've never seen it actually referenced to a particularly provable study, but that seems to be the commonly accepted number anyway. I presume that's more like 8% of their body fat levels as opposed to 8% of their overall weight each time, because that would quickly add up, 8% of overall weight. But it's a normal sort of story, and it's where the majority of people find themselves. And we say at the briefing meeting each month, when new people come in to find out a bit more about what we do, we ask what people there and how many people they know have achieved results with the standard menu of options. And there's very few, if any. And again, they're in the majority. About 5 to 10% of people who join gyms, who do slimming clubs, who do diets, etc., achieve the results they join for and then maintain it thereafter. So you're in the 90 to 95% majority there, which is great.
Yeah.
So that brings you up to about 3 years ago. When did you first hear about the academy?
About 5 years ago. I think I reckon it was a good couple of years where I've seen you on Facebook, and I sent you a message a couple of times asking a couple of questions, and then getting the answers and using that as a justification not to sign up, not liking the answer. Yeah, I kept seeing you more and more appearing in ads and in the reviews and what have you. And at this point as well, it's quite interesting. Is people who know me, people who are closest to me will testify to this. I was at that point where I was trying to convince myself that I was happy. This is like this is who I am now. I started to be fat and happy, which of course was really bullshit. It's just, you know, I just in other words, I've given up. I've gotten lazy. I just thought, surely it's going to be easier to just not do anything than constantly try new diets, constantly trying new things. And then when it got to the point, I think I'd seen a couple of photos, and I looked at myself and thought, this is genuinely now, this is getting ridiculous. So I inquired at the academy, and I thought of it as kind of a last chance saloon. I think I said that in my video when I passed the challenge as well, and that is how it felt. I thought, right, I'm going to try this one last thing now. If this doesn't work, that's it. I'm giving up.
What would you say sort of pushed you over the edge to trying it? You've been on the mailing list and seeing things for 2 years. You mentioned about seeing a couple of things. What particularly made you, at that point, give it a go?
It wasn't a particular advert or a particular message or anything like that. It was always in the back of my mind. Played for around 6 months leading up to actually coming down to the briefing meeting. I kind of knew that I was going to end up going down to a briefing meeting and seeing what it was all about. So I think, and I can't remember exactly what it was on the particular night that I sent the message or signed up to go to the briefing meeting. I think I was just started feeling quite miserable looking at photos, because it can be one particular photo, can't it? You see yourself and you think, holy crap.
Was it that photo you sent to me and Jamie the other day?
No, no.
I was quite taken aback by that, to be honest, because I think you must have lost weight between that and joining that photo you sent us.
Possibly, I might have started
I don't
putting
remember you
back on the.
looking like that.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, there's some really bad ones. There's one particular in Barcelona when I stood side. Someone's taking a photo of me taking a photo, and it's side on, and I'm out here. It's unreal. And when the
Do you
kids look at
remember?
them now, they're like, when the kids look at them, they say, and they don't mind saying, like, "You really that fat?" Like, yeah, I really was.
Do you remember what you weighed at that point?
When I joined,
Yeah.
I think I was pushing 22 stone, I think.
Okay, cool. And how did you feel then that walking into that briefing meeting that first time?
I was nervous. I was the initial nerves were walking in and being the only fat one there. I'm not even talking about the first session, I'm talking about the briefing meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to definitely be the fattest one there. I'm not going to get what they're saying. I was worried about the pricing because obviously you tend not to announce the pricing, do you? But yeah, I wasn't excited or looking forward to the briefing meeting. I just took the courage to go down and see what it was all about.
Again, that's pretty much where most people are when they come down. They're nervous, a bit unsure. Most people think they're probably going to be the fattest person there. And obviously, I mean, in theory, there will be one person who is the fattest person there, but actually for most people, that's not the case. And actually, it doesn't really matter being the fattest person there,
Yeah.
the thinnest, the slimmest, the fastest, or whatever. It's fairly irrelevant, hopefully. So you then decided to get cracking. You got sorted out. We got you in the system, in the Facebook group, etc., and you got started. What was your experience of then getting started as a member?
Oh, loved it. As soon as I came back from the briefing meeting, I still remember coming home after the briefing meeting. I was so excited. I just everything that you were saying in the briefing meetings, and it was Ben and Ben's wife, Lauren.
Oh, was it really? Ben and Lauren, yeah.
Yeah. And the things they were saying, and it was, you have these things where you always assume it's just you.
Mm-hmm.
And this said all these different things and basically described everything that I've been through. And I just thought, this just sounds perfect. So yeah, I got signed up, got your emails the day after, and then down for the induction. I just couldn't wait to get cracking. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I knew that in the past I felt like this when signing up to something new.
Yeah.
But I just decided, obviously the challenge, of course, wanted to do that. And so I just thought, yeah, as always, throw myself into it and see what happens.
Brilliant. And then down for your first session, the following, whatever it was, Monday, and how was that?
So it was Matt running the session. Told us to take it easy, not go too hard.
You listen to him?
We were doing some. No.
Of course you did.
So my face pretty much not moved. Proper exercise for years at that point. I've not had a gym membership for quite a few years before this. So we were doing squats with kettlebells in our hands, and I was doing them going up and down, up and down. I'm smashing this, and then I walked out the door. I could hardly walk down the stairs, and then I didn't make it back in for 5-6 days.
As a standard thing, men and women, but men particularly, I find that we say for that first few sessions to go about 30 to 40%. We probably really need 50 or 60, but we're hoping by saying 30 to 40, people might get a bit closer to that. If we say 60, they'll probably go at 80. And invariably, the vast majority of men in that first session look at people around them and think, oh, I can do that, and try and keep up or do something similar, and invariably regret it when they can't walk down the steps or are sore the next day. But we do advise not to do that.
No, you do. And that's one of the things I always say to new members as well. When you always ask us to welcome them in, I'll often say, genuinely, take it easy, especially if you've not done much, for a while. It was all good.
So that's the first week, and obviously you very quickly adapt to that. That's partly why we do that 8-week program to start with, because I find doing a free day or free week, like a lot of places do, is almost just the right amount to put people off. After one session or even a week, you're really sore. You kind of know what's going on, but you're still a bit confused. It's all a bit strange and what have you. You don't really look and feel any different after a day or a week, and you just think, right, actually, it's not for me. After 8 weeks, hopefully people have got their head around it. They understand what's going on. They've made changes. They're not so sore. They look and feel substantially different, and hopefully at that point decide they want to continue. But those first few weeks, obviously you've got your sessions, you'll come into them. What changes did you make to your food?
Well, it was all about the jerk at that point. You're still pushing that quite heavily. So that was probably the biggest change, was the food.
Yeah.
Just followed everything that you said, watched all the videos. Actually, for the first 4 weeks, I think we were using recipes on the app.
Okay.
Yeah, we were. I wasn't tracking. But obviously, I must have easily cut my calories in half, what I've been having.
Yeah.
So yeah, just following the advice and just keeping it simple and 3 meals a day. But I knew within 2 or 3 weeks that I was in the right place. I just absolutely fell in love with the place. Because I remember one thing I didn't quite understand when I came to the briefing meetings. I didn't ask on the night, but when I got what it was all about, it was group training and the coach leads the session. I was thinking, oh, is that going to work? Because I'm so massively unfit, and there's going to be people here who are fit. So surely there's different sessions for these people and different sessions for these people. I just couldn't get my head around how it was going to work. But I remember my first proper session. I was stood next to, I can't remember who it was, someone who was incredibly fitter than me. And we were doing exactly the same session. And at the end, I was absolutely shattered, and the sweat was dripping off me. And I looked to my left, and he was absolutely shattered, and the sweat was dripping out. And then I thought, well, clearly, because of the way the sessions are designed, we're all just pushing ourselves to our own limits.
Exactly, that's what we often call Goldilocks exercise. Not too easy, not too hard. Should be enough to elicit a response in that particular person, but not so much that they don't enjoy it and don't want to come back. And when you get your head around, it's actually relatively easy to do. You just change the weight, the speed, the version, the type. There's some way you can adjust that. And then as you get fitter and stronger and faster, you can then progress those things on to stop it getting easier.
Yeah, exactly.
So you joined in the April, and your good wife Emma then came down the following month, didn't she?
Yes, she did. Yeah.
Was that entirely her idea, or your suggestion, or a bit of both?
It was hers. It was always the plan. She was going to kind of see how I got on, and then obviously I was coming home and blowing your trumpet every night, and she could obviously see the instant results. And she was already doing the food side anyway, because obviously we're eating the same. So it was a no-brainer. And then obviously my brother Mark as well. I think he was a month or a couple months after that. He saw me.
He was the same month as Emma, wasn't he, Mark?
I can't remember. But I remember he hadn't seen me for 5 or 6 weeks. And then he saw me, and at that point I didn't think I looked that different. But I met him at Snooker Centre, and he stepped out of his car, and he just looked at me and went, "Oh my God."
I bet he said something slightly different to that, though, Mark.
Yeah. Bloody hell.
I was going to say, you didn't do an impression of him. You normally do an impression.
I know, yeah, I thought that. Exactly watching.
Yeah, awesome. So within a month or so, there was the 3 of you down there. You passed your challenge. I remember you passed it quite significantly. Was it £27?
No, it was just on the cusp of 20.
Oh, you were bang on. Sorry, my mistake. Yeah. So you passed your challenge. How did you find the challenge as a whole? The 8 weeks, losing £20.
Looking back now, not very challenging. It's quite simple, isn't it? Because it was because I was so big, and that pretty much cutting my calories in half and suddenly training every day. And because it was fresh, and because in the past, like I say, I do tend to throw myself into things, I was enjoying it, and I was just doing everything that was being advised. So everything that came after just followed naturally. So those first 8 weeks, I would say, were probably the easiest 8 weeks of my entire academy journey.
Okay, cool. You mentioned a couple of times there about cutting your calories in half. What did that actually look like? So what was a standard meal or day's food before versus after joining?
The types of food we were eating generally wasn't the issue. It was night time. My issues were, so I'd easily probably 5, 6 nights a week I'd have a full tub, sometimes a tub and a half of Ben and Jerry's.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think a tub in itself is about 1,000 calories.
Yeah.
So I'd easily do one of them in. Maybe went into the shop and they were on offer, get even more in, and then chocolate and crisps and that kind of thing.
So the co-op over the road, is it, presumably, your pantry?
Well, more before then, really. That was when we're on. I keep pointing over there, as if you know where I'm sat. When we're on TV, that's when I put most of my weight on. I go to Costco pretty much every day after work and get a load of Ben and Jerry's in and chocolate and crisps. But in terms of actual meals we were eating, we held generally good, nutritious food. So obviously we had the kids as well, and so mealtime was probably not too dissimilar to what it was when I joined the academy and what it is today.
Okay.
It is the night time.
Yeah, on top, yeah. But if you do the maths on that, let's say one tub of Ben and Jerry's, let's say 1,000 calories. In theory, let's say 7,000 calories a week. If that alone, in theory, is 2 pounds of weight gain per week, all else being equal, which is 104 pounds per year. Now, obviously, that wasn't happening consistently, but you can soon see what a difference taking that off. And whilst Ben and Jerry's is nice, it's perhaps not. Well, it is. I'm not disputing it is. It's perhaps something you can adjust relatively easily, either doing less often or halving the portion, and make a substantial difference to your intake with, which is obviously what you did there.
Yeah.
How did the rest
see
of the
now, see now, I know. See, I've not changed that much. If you put a tub of ice cream in front of me, I'm going to eat a tub of ice cream. So the difference I'll do now is if I'm buying ice cream, I buy Halo. So that you can get a tub of Halo. That's I think it's 300 calories.
Yeah, 300 something big difference, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'm still not a person who can pick up a tub of ice cream, have a few spoons, and I think, all right, I'll put that back in the freezer.
Don't necessarily need to be, though, do you?
No, that's the difference. That is the difference. And addressing it beforehand as well, rather than doing it and then regretting it. It's planning ahead. So I know on Friday night I'm going to have a few beers and a bit of shit food. So I'm going to build myself up to that rather than doing it and then waking up Saturday regretting it, and then hoping I can have the discipline to claw it back over the week.
That's one thing I often try and help people question, because people talk about enjoying their food, and people sometimes ask me if I enjoy my food as though I eat like a monk or something like that. And I actually reckon I get more enjoyment from my food than most people, because I actually enjoy it. I enjoy it. There's no guilt. There's no upset. There's no regret afterwards. Whereas a lot of people, I talk to them, and whilst they may enjoy the number of seconds that the taste is on their lips, overall, it doesn't seem to be providing enjoyment. It doesn't seem to be providing happiness to them. It seems to be providing misery on average overall. And you mentioned there like a tactical substitution there, swapping Haagen-Dazs or Ben and Jerry's or what have you for Halo. What do you find the difference in taste between those two is?
Monumental. Halo is nowhere near as nice as Ben and Jerry's.
Fair enough. Is it worth the difference? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's the key often. It's like, I get that other options may not be quite as nice, but it's, if they make a sufficient difference to make it a worthwhile swap, to me, that's worthwhile. If you have something that's 80% is enjoyable, but has 50% of the calories or whatever the maths is, then that's not a no-brainer, but it makes sense as something to explore, I think. I've lost your sound. Can't hear you. Just while Lee's trying to figure out his sound, anyone that's watching live on the page, feel free to post any questions that you want to ask, anything you're interested in hearing Lee's experience of as a member, about his journey with us, about the good things, the bad things, the highlights, the challenges, the frustrations, etc. He's got a confused look on his face. He's clearly checking his settings. Has anything gone flat? You lost power to a microphone, anything like that? Can you hear me? You can hear me. Let me just check my settings, make sure it's not that. Can you hear me now still? Yeah, all my settings seem fine. I just can't hear you. All right, guys, I'm just going to carry on talking while Lee tries to figure something out. We may have to drop off this and do a fresh call if needs be. Again, if you're watching this video live on the Facebook page, feel free to ask any questions. Get the experience of a real life member, someone perhaps you might perceive to be similar to you, see how they may have faced and overcome any challenges and frustrations and difficulties that you feel you have faced or may face in a similar situation. Any progress on sound there, Lee? Oh, you made a noise. There was like a staticky noise then for a second. I can hear something now. Ah, that's on your phone. So I can hear your phone. That's strange. Anyone who's watching live, just feel free to let me know how your day's been as well. It's Sunday. It's really confusing. It's hard to remember days now. I was only thinking about half an hour or so ago that tomorrow's Monday. I need to get ready to take my sessions, GTP live sessions on the Academy. Lee's just messaged me. He says his volume bar is going up when he speaks, so his microphone is working. That is strange. Right, guys. Oh, he's taking his headphones off. Seeing if that does anything.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now perfectly. The Bluetooth headphones, were they?
Yeah, they're like 80% power.
Your voice is much clearer now, actually. Without them, it was slightly staticky before. It's much clearer.
Right, okay.
Perfect. Right, we're back on. We're back on. So we got up to there. You passed the challenge. And you said, in retrospect, looking back now, the challenge was one of the, well, probably the easiest part of your journey. How's it been since?
Up and down. Mm-hmm. Which I know you've done many blogs and videos on this, pretty much following those. So down, probably for the first, I'd say 3 months, maybe 4 months, and then the plateauing set in. And they're the hardest points. It was where I started plateauing out, and started getting a bit kind of disillusioned with what was happening. But it's just always been a case of just readdressing where I am at that point and realizing that doing what I'm doing at a certain point isn't going to work forever. And obviously, in particular with the calories, it makes perfect sense, of course, because obviously, if I'm eating at a certain level to maintain or lose based on my weight there, obviously when I lose all that weight, all them levels change. I'd say it's only really in the last year. I'd say I'm fully 100% confident that I'm completely in control of where I am and where I need to go and what I need to do. I've stopped looking for excuses, and so I know on the months where I haven't lost weight or I haven't hit a certain target, I can look at it and I know why I haven't, and I know what I've done or what I haven't done to achieve that. And I think that's given me a lot of clarity. And I think I said to you last year, in fact, it was pretty much this time last year, we're on the train home from the FA Cup semi-finals, which is where I would have been today. And I had this sudden sort of moment of clarity where I decided I'm not on a journey now. I'm not trying to achieve anything. I've just decided this is just my lifestyle now. This is just how I live. So generally speaking, I eat well, and generally speaking, I work out. And I know that if I live my life like that, everything's going to carry on going in the same direction.
Okay, cool. So looking back there, I think you've half answered this already anyway, but looking back now, knowing what you know now, what would you say was the cause of the plateauing and the sort of 2 steps forward, 1 back, etc. at that point?
I think mainly with me, it's probably complacency. Because all my bad months, if you like, have always come after a good month. Mm-hmm. So I'll have periods of success followed by periods of failure, if you like. So I think looking back, it's more a case of I should have addressed where I was at that point each time. Every time I stepped on the scales, every time I was trying to achieve a certain target, I should have readdressed more often and realigned and reset the targets, if you like, just based on where I was at that current point, rather than carry on doing the same thing over and over again, hoping for the same results.
So would you say then, when you say complacency, would that be that your eating got slightly worse just because you're a bit less attentive to it? Was that sort of kind of what was happening?
Yeah, so I'd have a particularly good month in terms of weight loss, And then my self-discipline on resisting would loosen up a bit. So I think, well, I've just had a good month, and that's not going to make much difference, and that's not going to make much difference. And I mean, I've not had any monumentally bad months since I started. I've never been in danger of getting anywhere back towards where I was. You're only ever talking, 3 or 4 pounds here and there. But at the time, I beat myself up about that, and then from there you can go either way, can't you? You can kind of go into a sunken state and make it even worse. But thankfully, I've never really done that. I've kind of beat myself up a bit and then sorted my head out and got back on it, because I know what I'm supposed to do. I know what I need to do.
Okay. Another thing that happened quite early in your journey as a member is Born Survivor. How many weeks did you been a member for when you did Born Survivor?
6.
6 weeks. Wow. So for those that don't know, Born Survivor is a 10K, as in 10,000 metre, almost like a cross-country race. It's like being at school. They do it at Capesthorne Hall over to west of Macclesfield. It's held every May there. With 31 obstacles along the way, and we've had some substantial teams from the academy over the years taking part. So you did it in 2017. That was our really big team, wasn't it? Was that the 164? What colour t-shirt were you wearing? White or green?
White.
Yeah, white. Yeah, white. So in 2016, we had 106 people on our team. Is that right? It was 104, 106, I think. In 2017, when you were there, 164 of us did Born Survivor. You did it after only 6 weeks. What were you thinking?
I was bricking it. you proper wrote me into it. I didn't tell you I was doing it.
I gently encouraged you.
I don't even remember. I promised if I told you the day I was going to come and haunt you.
Yeah.
But Emma was the only person who knew I was doing it. I didn't tell any friends or family, because I was that convinced I was going to fail, not make it all the way around, that I didn't then want to have the embarrassing conversation with people after. How did he get on? No, I didn't finish. So I didn't tell anybody until after, when I posted on Facebook. But yeah, ultimately it was, just loved it. And obviously I've done it every year since. So.
Yeah. So how did you find the actual event? Physically, mentally, emotionally? How was
it? Physically, probably not as bad as I thought it was going to be. But that, again, because I pretty much went at my own pace, I was fine. I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I was laughing the way around. It was just a brilliant day, and then obviously getting dragged up the I don't remember what it's called, the
Blitz.
The bit at the end, and then standing on top of there, it was just the Blitz. It's one of the best moments of my life.
You weren't dragged up. You were assisted.
Yeah, I fell on my first attempt, cracked a rib, and then the second attempt was kind of half-arsed, and then the last attempt, I think it was yourself and Ian Edwards actually assisted me. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Me over. So I remember Emma was definitely there. Were all of your kids there?
Freddie wasn't. Was Freddie there that year? No, I think Freddie was at Stagecoach. I think Emma and Harry were there.
Right, I thought it was Harry, and I couldn't remember if Emma was there or not. Cool. So you've done Born Survivor every year since. What else would you say are some of the particular highlights of the last 3 years?
Oh crikey! It's the little things. I did a post on this last year, and it was when I went to Alton Towers. I don't even remember that. I love Alton Towers. One of the worst moments pre-academy, if you like, was going to Alton Towers, a load of friends and family. And I kind of always knew which rides I could fit on and which ones I couldn't. And I'd never been on air, which is now called Galactica. And I tried to seat outside the ride before, and I was sat in it fine. And I went and got on the ride. And it felt like I was in fine, but obviously something in their system was telling me that the seat wasn't locking properly. And they politely asked me to get off the ride. It was awful. So when I went back last year, obviously it wasn't even an issue. I was just getting on every single ride. Some rides that I'd just never been able to go on because it was too big. And no issues whatsoever. And planes as well. every time I get on a plane, that's always huge for me because it's you know, the trays that come down on your back your seat. Mine would never sit flat because you can't just go to sort of there and sit to my belly.
Yeah.
So it's a bit awkward. So now every time I kind of pull the tray down, I'm like, oh yeah, look at that.
Check it out. You'll be annoying the person in front by doing it for the duration of the flight.
It's all the little things like that, and buying clothes and just little tiny things that you don't necessarily notice bother you that much at the time, but when you look back, it's they're the main things for me.
Cool, and that's obviously some highlights there. What would you say have been the less good parts of the last 3 years?
I suppose just those moments, like I mentioned before, when I went through a period, probably 4 or 5 months of the plateauing and kind of finding excuses as to why that was happening rather than addressing the real issue, and kind of growing a bit disillusioned with it all. But honestly, ultimately, there's not been anything majorly negative in the last 3 years. It's just been you know, one good achievement to the next, both physically and I'd say above all mentally. I think that's been the biggest change for me since joining it is how I've changed as a person, more on the inside than on the outside.
How have you changed as a person, would you say?
I'm a lot calmer. And I used to be angry a lot, miserable. Used to get down quite often. Just not a very nice person to be around a lot of the time, especially for Emma and others that were close to me. But I've just chilled out. I've just chilled out so much, and just appreciating things more. And I feel happier, and I've got generally a brighter outlook on life. And I think ultimately that does come down to looking after yourself on the outside. I think it all feeds into each other. I think it works as a circle that way, and it's that's been the main thing. Again, particularly over the last year, where I really kind of addressed where I'm at and where I'm going. I felt better. And
why would you say that what we do at the academy has worked for you? Because it doesn't always work for everyone. We have people come down for a couple of months and decide it's not quite the right fit for them. You've obviously tried a number of things in the past that didn't work for you, but this one did. Why would you say that is?
People. There's no doubt about that. It's that community aspect which I never even expected to get when I joined. But I remember quite early on being in the Facebook group and people talking about what a shit week they'd had and things like that, and being brutally honest. I loved it, and I've not seen anything like it before. People, they weren't making excuses or anything like that. Just general open chit chat about, I've not worked out hard any this week, or I've eaten far too much, and then all the support that then is thrust upon them from the coaches, of course, but also just from all the other ninjas. And I just bought into that straight away. I was all over it. It was I think that for me is what above all else sets the academy aside, is that big community aspect. We're all it's kind of like we're all in it together kind of thing. We're all, even though we've all got different goals and different ideas of where we want to get to, we're all in it together and working towards, you get what I mean?
Of course, yeah. So we've had a few questions. Sorry. Say again, sorry.
I think once I kind of encompass that, in terms of we all turned up, 164 of us, we're all different shapes and sizes. Some people are raring to go, some people are bricking it. But we all got each other around, and that's what I loved as well doing the last couple of years as well, as being the person who has done it before, and helping other people around and lifting people over things. And so I felt like I've kind of seen it from both sides.
Should have been there again. A week next Saturday should have been this year's Born Survivor, shouldn't it?
No.
Good in.
Yeah.
I've been racking my brains trying to think of an equivalent we can do under lockdown circumstances. I haven't really got anywhere yet. It's percolating at the moment. It might be that a week on Saturday morning, we're all doing something from our own houses that kind of is vaguely similar. I'm not quite sure where that's going to go yet. So that brings you up to date. Got a few questions come in then on the page. So Jamie says, proper Grumpy Lee when the weight went on a bit, but not anymore. Thumbs up. Kim says she remembers when you started, an amazing transformation. Alex, my wife Alex, makes a great point and a good question. How do you make sure being busy with work and family, she put don't, she means doesn't, prevent you from training? So how do you strike that work-family life balance? Because you've got 4 kids, you've got your own business, you've got a lot on.
Yeah, I do that by putting myself in a position where I don't have to balance them. So if I'm in the weights room with you at 6 a.m. in the morning, I know that the family is still in bed at home. By the time I get home, they're still in bed, and then they all get up and we go about our day. So I've kind of always tried to make a point of it not affecting the work life or the family life. In the past, when I first joined, I used to do the evening sessions. I could kind of use that as a justification to not go and train. You know, if I had a bad day at work, or say that, you know, if Emma was having a bad day with the kids or anything like that, it's I better not go and train. Whereas if I can get myself out of bed at 5:30 in the morning and be there with you guys at 6, then I know I've done it. That's it. I've trained for the day, and it's not impacted on work or the family.
And hopefully it's positively impacting on those two things.
Sets you up for the day as well. It's that's the best thing I like, because you start the day in a great mood. That's all about 6 a.m. training.
Exactly, and that's what we often say, and you've heard it many times before. It's about realising that often by looking after ourselves, it's counterintuitive. We're actually then going to help the people who perhaps we didn't do these things for before in the past. We're going to help them even more. We're going to become that better version of ourselves, a better husband, better business owner, boss, father, etc., rather than kind of going the opposite direction by not doing these things.
Definitely.
So speaking of children, you've obviously got 4 children now. You had 3 children when you joined. Lucy is now, what, 7 months? Is that right?
No, it's just coming up for 6 months.
Oh, carried away there. Do you think Lucy would have existed without some of the changes in the last 3 years?
God.
Possible to say, but...
Actually, in a roundabout way, from a physical side, there's a chance to go, but in a roundabout way, the whole thing I was saying before about being a sort of a brighter person in general was the reason that me and Emma started having our annual getaways together. We never used to do anything like that, but we kind of made a point of going away and just being a couple. So we went to New York, obviously, last January, and
9 months later. I did wonder for a second when you started to say we started having our annual. What you were going to say? Funnily enough, Lee sent me a message. I think it was when I presume is when you were expecting, or maybe after Lucy's been born or something like that. Because I've got 4 kids, 3 of my own and a stepdaughter and what have you. It must have been after she was born, because we got the dog at that point, and you pointed out that now you'd got 4 kids and 2 dogs compared to my 4 kids and 1 dog, that you win. So I immediately came over to Alex.
That's the only reason Lucy exists.
I immediately came over. I got clarification first. I wanted to make sure what the weighting of was dog versus child. I.e., if I had a 5th child, does that only equal your 4 children and 2 dogs, or does it beat it? And when you clarified that it would beat it, I immediately came over to Alex and said we need another child. Apparently, beating you in a ridiculous made-up competition isn't a good enough justification to bring an extra human into the world.
Yeah. Well, no, competitive class. I know it'll be ringing away there in the back of your mind. So, sorry, Alex.
Yeah, she's a sport. Alex, another question from Alex. She's on it. She says, what are your top 3 tips for getting results?
Top 3 tips for getting results. Tracking. I want to say tracking. Ultimately, tracking what you eat. Not counting exercise towards your calorie target. I'm talking purely weight loss here, of course. Not counting exercise. I did that for a long time, I think it definitely went against me. And I suppose not beating yourself too much over what you're eating, and rather looking more at how much of it you're eating.
Yeah.
And it's funny actually because you mentioned this. I think it was today in a video you mentioned it when you talk about the cost of healthy eating and the time consumption and what have you. I used to do that a lot. If we didn't have anything particularly good in, it'd be quite easy to then order out or order takeout and then just overeat. So I used to do that a lot. So I suppose it's a case of looking more at how much you're eating as opposed to what you're eating.
Okay, cool. So just rewind there. The first thing you mentioned there was tracking, which for anyone watching or listening who doesn't know, tracking is basically recording what you're eating. We normally recommend that people use the app MyFitnessPal. You can use any app, but it's one that we're very familiar with and therefore can advise on usage of. And we can be added as friends on there so people can share diaries and we can check and give a bit of feedback and direction. And from my experience, of all the things I've ever recommended, tracking your food is the thing that has the biggest return on investment, the thing that takes the least amount of effort but gives the most positive results. But it's also the thing that people are most reluctant to do. Did you track kind of first time we mentioned it, or did you take a while to get round to doing it?
No, I think when you first started pushing MyFitnessPal, I think I jumped straight onto it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was blown away when you had everything up. It was
it's crazy, isn't it?
It was so powerful.
Yeah.
But what I tend to do now is although I think you do it every day now, but I tend to go through periods now, so I'll track for maybe two or 3 weeks at a time, just to check that I'm still kind of in the right zone, make sure that the numbers haven't crept out, what have you. And then I'll have a few weeks off, and then I'll track again. So I'm not religiously tracking
Sure.
day in, day out, but I know it's there, and it is so powerful. It really
exactly.
is.
And you don't need to track every day. Like I do, because I found by doing it for the last several months, I've got in the best shape of my life. So I kind of think, actually, whilst it's a little bit of a pain, it's not that much of a pain. And why would I stop doing something that's got me the best results ever? But what we always recommend is someone tries it for 3 to 5 days, just to give themselves some clarity over some of their choices, a bit of extra knowledge and information about the impact of those choices. They can learn about some tactical adjustments they can make that would help them achieve the results. And invariably, I always find that when people do it, it's a fraction of a pain in the arse that they've been telling themselves. They're telling themselves it was going to take ages. They'd had a look at the app and not quite got the hang of it in the first 30 seconds of looking, and then sort of written it off as being too much of a faff. But I think a genuine thing for most people, if you're reasonably tech savvy, you can get the hang of it in literally a handful of minutes.
Yeah. And the biggest, when I speak to people about it, people sometimes say it's sometimes tough to find the thing that you're eating. And what I always said, my tip there is to find something that's remotely similar, and you'll end up with a big list, and then choose the worst one on there.
Yeah.
Always choose the highest calorific option on there.
Yeah.
So you know that you at worst you're overestimating what you've eaten. But the times when I find it most powerful is generally over kind of like, say, a Thursday to a Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So if we assume that most people on a Saturday, what have you, lax up a bit and maybe have a takeaway, just really looking at the impact that has, because if you overdo it and then you try and work out what you're then going to have to do to claw that back, it really helps you rethink what you have the next time you have a takeaway.
Yeah, you question your decisions, don't you?
Yeah, you really do.
So what I find is people don't do it because they think it's going to be this massive inconvenience. And whilst it's a bit of an inconvenience, it's way less of an inconvenience than going for a workout. It's 1 or 2 minutes per meal, as opposed to an hour or so out of the house where you're going to have to do something physical and work up a sweat. I think people as well often don't like it because they feel it's going to take all the fun out of eating. And if anything, I find it's the opposite. When you know that the choice you're making can work on an average for the week and take you in a positive direction, you can just make that eating just fun, just enjoyable. Like I have plenty of meals that some people would consider unhealthy or bad or what have you. Yes. But I know because I can make the average work and it's not going to affect my progress towards my goals, I can just enjoy it. No guilt, no beating myself up about it. It's just enjoyable. It makes eating more enjoyable, not less, at least in my opinion. For any members who are now made...
So I was going to say that's why I treat the weekend as well as the start of the week rather than the end of the week, because I think if you have those meals like you're talking about there, you're pre-planning, so you already know, and then you know what I mean. You know, right, I'm going to have this, but because I know that over the rest of the week I'm going to have this, this, and this, and like you say, you can have it completely guilt-free because you know over the week you're going to be absolutely fine.
Yeah, exactly. Alex says we are not getting another dog. And your Emma says nothing sacred with you lot, and a couple of crying face emojis. So, right. Kim pointed out the numbers there for Born Survivor. We've gone through the top 3 tips. Janet says try Oppo ice cream, less than 200 calories a tub, and it's delicious, apparently. And last question we've had there on the page, how has lockdown affected your training and eating?
Eating, not too bad. It's we've been all right getting the food in. In fact, we've done really well on the food front. Ordering in fruit and veg and meat from local companies, and we've all been eating together as a family more than we ever would as well, which has been nice. Training, I've not trained as much as I should have. We've already had this conversation. But I've addressed it. I've worked out why I've not been training as much as I should be. Put a plan in place to get that sorted from tomorrow morning, actually.
It is.
Yeah.
Jamie has put down, apparently, encouraged equals mithered. He reckons I mithered you both about doing Born Survivor.
Definitely.
I always point out that with stuff like that, if someone gives me a definite no, I'll stop immediately. I'm not going to keep going on about it when they've said no. So if it's a maybe...
I think I was giving you all, I won't be able to do it, or I don't think I can do it, I don't think I should do it. And you were just kind of like a gentle nudge.
Gentle encouragement.
Now, obviously, yeah. It was encouraging. And I'm glad you did, of course.
I'm finding an interesting thing at the moment, actually, as well. I'm getting feedback from some of the coaches at the academy that some of the members are feeling a little bit mithered at the moment. Because obviously I normally put a lot of stuff out there anyway. They normally get a blog and a video every day, and at the moment it's going out on the page and what have you. And some people are feeling a little bit mithered by the volume of stuff that's coming out. I do get that. I get how they can feel like that. But ultimately, 2 things. Firstly, you can just ignore it. And secondly, that's what I'm here for. You know, people employ me, not to mither them, but to be relentless, to continue to do stuff. You know, if someone wants somewhere, they'll take their money and allow them to disappear and not do anything and only ever contact them when they're direct debit bouncers. There are plenty of places out there that will do that. That's not what we do. We're there to be consistent in our support, to help people when they stumble and fall. Sometimes that can be annoying, I get that, I completely understand that, but that's what we're here for. And again, you know, worst case scenario, people can just choose to ignore some of the stuff along the way if they want to. I think that's all the questions that will come through on the page. Let me just double check. I don't want another dog. Alex is saying about getting another dog. I never mentioned getting another dog. Another child would be fine.
Yeah, don't get a dog.
Jamie says Red Willow is a great source of nutrition, isn't it, Lee?
Yeah.
They're doing home delivery, aren't they, of whatever you call it? Not tubs. What's the word? Caskets? Bags.
Bag of beer in a box. That.
Yeah. But great thing with that is you can still get results while drinking beer, can't you?
Track it.
Yeah, exactly. To me, I feel like I'm going on and on about it all the time, but I'm going to keep going on about it until not everyone does it, but at least everyone's given it a go and learnt and got the benefits from it. Because as you say there, it means you can enjoy it. You can have your beer, you can have your takeout, you can have your ice cream, and you can make the average of the week work. And to rewind actually something you said earlier, when people say about not being able to find things on there, I get that that's sometimes the case. That's why I put together that system only gone live today with our new menu planner, which has MyFitnessPal barcodes on. So I showed how I scanned it in from launching the app to being back out of the app, having scanned and inputted it. It was 14 seconds. So if someone can't be bothered to do that, well, I have to well, I don't know what I can do then. But ultimately, if you can't find it, if you can't find the next best thing, to me that kind of suggests you haven't got the slightest clue about what you're eating. It's like if you brought something and saying, look, I know I'm getting overdrawn, I know I'm going into, further into debt, I haven't got the slightest clue how much I'm spending on stuff. You probably need to figure it out somewhere, even if it's only a next best guess, an approximation, because if you really haven't got a clue, that's probably the reason, I'd say. Cool. So we've been going for nearly an hour now. Any sort of closing thoughts? Anything you think that the average member or someone who's thinking of joining or just someone who's interested in your experiences might be interested in hearing from you?
Well, to anyone thinking of joining, come and check it out. I think you pretty much know. I think it's that sort of place where you know within a week or two if it's the right sort of place for you. Yeah, sorry, what was the other question?
It was kind of that, just any sort of closing thoughts for anyone that might be interested to just sum up your experience, your just final thoughts, really.
Yes, and for existing members as well. I think the main thing for any Academy Ninja is to make the best out of everything that's available to you in terms of the blogs and the videos and the support within the group. And it's great because it's there. It is only there as and when you need it, because you can kind of turn it on and off. If you're going through a particularly great time and you don't need support, you don't need any tips, you don't need to watch the videos or the blogs or anything like that. But I just personally find it really useful sometimes if I'm struggling mentally or even physically to go back and watch videos and start engaging in the group again and that kind of thing. And it does lift you up. And like when you sent me that message, I think, was it yesterday?
Possibly, day before maybe, but yeah.
You just simply said, have you been doing the online sessions? And
because I knew you hadn't.
Here we go, we have to confront this now. And then straight away, I've got a plan back in place. And I think that's what, if anybody is struggling, that's what they should do. Just use the service that is there.
Yeah. I generally find that when people do if they're starting to feel a bit annoyed by it or mithered or what have you, that's kind of a nudge to look in the mirror. I think when things are going well, you can just quite happily switch off things and go, I don't need it, I'm fine, all's good. When it starts to annoy you, there's probably a reason it's starting to annoy you.
Yeah, because you're making yourself ask questions of yourself, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I know that's what I'm like anyway. Yeah.
Awesome, cool. So we're pretty much bang on an hour there. So guys listening now, I hope you enjoyed that. I will tomorrow morning when the dog wakes me up ridiculously early, I'll be turning this into an audio version, which will go out there in normal podcast format. I'll send details out tomorrow on how people can listen to that with their podcast app or whatever they normally use. But thank you for your time, Lee. I really enjoyed that. The guys commenting there saying Jamie, Alex, and others say that they really enjoyed it and found it beneficial. So thank you for your time, Lee. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too. Cheers.
That's right.